Welcome to Culture Before Content. Culture Before Content from Music for All and presented by Yamaha. And now, here's your host, David Duarte.
Hey, welcome to the show. I'm David Duarte, your host, and whether you're joining live or catching a rebroadcast or listening to a replay, you are what brings this community to life. At Music for All and within the Culture Before Content community, our mission is to create, provide, and expand positively life-changing experiences through music. And none of this happens without support, and we are incredibly grateful for Yamaha, who's our national presenting sponsor, for helping bring this mission to life. Now, just a quick reminder, we go live on Sundays. And so if you're here live, we are live and it's Sunday. I say this every week. I don't know why. Okay. But if you want to catch the show live, you can always head over to Music for All Facebook page and check the events tab. It usually happens around Saturday. Sometimes it's Sunday morning and you can see what's coming up and you can just click there. I like clicking on the going or interested, but I always tend to click on going. Yeah, I'm always going. Anyway, you can watch and join the conversation. You can also use the YouTube link on our show page. Just go to YouTube and search for Music for All and click on the live tab and you will find it. It's super easy. And on either platform, you can chat, you can leave a comment, say hi, you can say something cool, you could leave a recipe, something that would be great. Give me a recipe. And after the live broadcast, audio-only episodes are released every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other major platforms. And no matter what, for audio or video, you can always find all of our episodes at musicforall.org/podcasts. That's always a mouthful. All right. You are going to love this show. It is going to be full of fun, inspiration, everything you need to get your week going. But today we have Miss Jazzmone Sutton. She is the Senior Manager for State Advocacy and Equity at NAFME and a former elementary music educator from North Carolina. Her work beautifully connects teaching and advocacy, showing how empowering students in the classroom can grow into a larger movement for access, equity, and representation in music education. She reminds us that every time we teach with purpose and compassion, we're also advocating for a more inclusive and inspired future for music education. Please welcome to the show, Miss Jazzmone Sutton.
Hey,
Welcome. This is so amazing. I love that smile. I anytime someone greets with a smile, I think it just makes for the best day ever.
exactly. It's halfway there.
All right. Well, let's get this show started. Jazzmone, why don't you give us just a little bit about who you are, maybe a little about NAFME, maybe a little about your career. Who are you?
All right. So thanks for having me today, David. I will tell you a quick little synopsis about my work and how I got started. So I started out as an elementary music teacher, and I wasn't sure about the little people, but they are the best. Professional secret, they are the absolute best. So I started teaching, and then my state, North Carolina, decided that they were going to have a huge education budget cut. And that meant that across the board, there were going to be not only music, art, and PE cuts, but bus drivers, principals, cafeteria workers, the whole shebang, right, to fit this budget cut. And then I also was volunteering with my music education association, and I was president-elect at the time. So I had to figure out, how do I advocate? How do I teach? How do I make sure that my students still have access to music education? And that's how I got into doing advocacy work. And we fought for 2 years to get what we now call program enhancement teacher positions, which means that for every certain number of students, there is a position for your art, your music, your dance, your theater teachers, which was actually more positions than we had started out with. So that was a huge advocacy win. But also it taught me how to navigate being a teacher and an advocate at the same time. I became super passionate about teaching teachers how to feel like they could be a part of the advocacy process. And then in 2021, so I taught through the pandemic, also some of the best teaching years I've ever had. I know some people are like, those were the worst, but some of the best teaching years I had. And then in 2021, I transitioned to NAFME, which is the National Association for Music Education. And it's a blast. It's a blast.
Oh, I think that reminds me. I think I have 11 days. I need to pay my dues. Thank you for the amazing reminder. And of course, I saw my president from my area on there, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've got 11 days. I should probably pay my dues.
You have a
And
great
I
MEA.
yes, we do. Oh, I think I love all the MEAs. And let's talk a little bit about advocacy, because first off, thank you for promoting general music. I think the little ones are amazing. That's actually how I started my career, with the little ones, and it's so they can capture your heart. You just have to be a little scared of kindergarten for like 2 weeks, and then let
Mhm.
good. But after that, they're great. And I think that's you're speaking to some of my heart here, which is the little ones are the ones that become the musicians down the road, and creating lifelong appreciators of music. And then some of us are going to become teachers one day. And I think that advocacy piece that is at the core of today is really something. And so what does advocacy mean to you? Like, what is your version of advocacy? What kind of advice can we give to a teacher who's listening today?
I always say that advocacy, well, first of all, let me give you a clarity, kind of, or at least how I look at it. So one, there's advocacy, which is like public support. And we often say, of course, people support the arts, they just don't act upon that support. So when I talk about advocacy, I always put the word effective in front of it. I say effective advocacy is getting other people to act positively on behalf of you or your students or music education as a whole. And so when we think about that definition, when we break it down, it means not just the teacher is acting, but other people. That's students, parent, community members, admin, anyone who is impacted by music education, which is everyone. So that's kind of how I look at advocacy.
What do you say to the music teacher? Because here's what pops in my head. You never know what's going to pop in there. But I'm thinking to myself, our classroom is one of the best places to start with advocacy for
Mm.
music, because these are our future leaders. These are our future adults. This is our future, and you can use the classroom as something, and not necessarily to the purpose of advocacy, but just positive speak. And I was just thinking, how do we go about, once we start becoming teachers? How do we do the process of getting the word out to more than just our students?
Okay, so I always start. I have this like triangle of a process. So the bottom of that triangle is relationships. Who are you building your relationships with? Number one should always be your students. They are the reason why we are in the classroom every single day. They are the reason why we do this work. So building those relationships with our students and making sure that we know why they are in music class, but also making sure that they know why they're in music class and why music education is important to them is crucial to our advocacy work. I worked with elementary students, and I could go up to them and say, tell me why music is important. And they could answer it. They could write it down. They could show me. They could tell me. And that's in kindergarten. So from kindergarten all the way up to collegiate, retired, higher ed, everyone needs to make sure that when we're working with students, we got to make sure that they know why music education is important, but also that they feel confident to share why music is important to them. And then outside of your classroom, I like to say teacher talk is also advocacy. How we talk to our colleagues about what we do, what things we're trying, how we're meeting our students' needs. Those are also ways that we do advocacy work. Um, I have I tell this story about I was going to change the way I was teaching, and I was talking with my art teacher and telling her about the research that I was doing and how it met the needs of the students and how I had conversations with them. And this was a huge change up from the traditional way of teaching elementary music. And so, in our weekly team meeting with our administration, I went up and I said, okay, I'm going to change the way I'm teaching and I'm going to try it out, see how it works. And my principal just shot me down. It's like, nah, I don't think that's going to work. And then my art teacher speaks up before I even can respond. And she was like, wait a second. She's been talking about this and she's done the research and I think she'll do a great job at it. Like, let's see what happens. And my principal says, well, okay. And then I got to teach that way, and I didn't think I was being an advocate when I was having those conversations with my art teacher, but she advocated for me and was able to act positively on my behalf so that I could meet the needs of my students in a way that my principal wasn't even aware was an opportunity. Right. So it's building those relationships, and the way that we talk about our students to other teachers is also how we build relationships and how we create advocates and other people. Outside of that, like it really is having conversations with people and just asking questions. One of the things that I've learned as an advocate is you can never ask too many questions. So just ask a lot of questions.
Well, what I like to say is you can only be told no, so but you've got to ask in the first
Yes.
place. And I
Yeah.
was thinking about that relationship because I'm a huge believer in relationships. And I was thinking to myself, when I was young, I had a hard time speaking to administration because I was young and I still viewed them as principals, as
Mm,
superintendents. And as I've gotten older, what am I now, about 26, 27?
yeah.
um right about there. I feel much more comfortable speaking, but it took the practice of using that. And so what kind of channels or what kind of practice do you say, is it, sending an email? Is it asking questions? Is it, just what kind of advocacy thoughts do you have in building those relationships? Because I think that's really at its core what we're looking for.
Well, I think it depends on who you're talking to and like when you're talking to them. So, one of the best advice that I got for talking to admin came from my friend Angie Keaty out in Colorado. And she says, because she was an admin, she was like, don't ever go to your principal on a Monday morning or a Friday afternoon. That's brilliant because they are trying to start the week or they're trying to deal with the things to wrap up the week. So if you want to have a conversation with your principal, I highly recommend setting out and sending out an email and saying, "Hey, I want to talk to you," and then list specific things that you want to talk to them about. Always go seeking information before you ask, right? I have a good friend named James Duarte, and James says if you have a problem, go to your principal with the problem and two solutions that you have chosen, because that way you get to choose which ones that you want presented. But also, if he picks one, then it's likely going to be one that you like. So, if you do go to your principal with a problem, go to them with two solutions, but ultimately try to get to them before the problem happens. I like to say it's a great way to kick off your year. Sometimes it could be in September if you start in August, in October. That's also a good way. Sometimes it's even after your first, if you have like a school improvement plan meeting or somewhere in there, and you talk about how music education fits within the culture of the entire school. Yes, we are sometimes in our own department and in our own classrooms, and we are oftentimes some of the only folks in our school that do music education. And it's important to not isolate ourselves from the larger picture of what students are doing because we have an impact on those students as well. We are all a part of the same system of educating the whole child, and the whole child is not complete without music education.
Truer words have never been spoken. That's amazing. Um, and so, how do we teach people this? Because I think sometimes, I can't even speak English today. I really wish that we would sometimes have like a handbook of things, like just like here are 20 things to try it at the top of your year. Send an email. Like I think you and I should just build what would be our checklist. First off is I'm going to have a calendar and I'm going to send that calendar to
Mm.
everyone, and that calendar is going to have dates and times, and then I'm going to send a newsletter, and then I'm going to send at the top of the month. By the way, did you know most email solutions you can send you can create all of your emails at the beginning of the year and just have it
Hey
send out
now.
just like a little nice message to people. But those
Mhm.
those are the kind of things. Do you have any like little tricks? Because I think that's one of the most important things you can do for advocacy is be organized and spread the information of what you do in the classroom.
Yeah, well, and I also think first, before you do anything, is recognizing that what somebody else has done might not work in your situation. So start small. If you need to just send that email once a quarter, send it once a quarter. pick a specific group of people that you want to be collaborators with, that you want to get to know better. So if you have a great relationship with your students, maybe that's not the group you want to start with. Maybe you want to start with your parents. Maybe you need to build your parent booster group. Maybe you need to connect with your parents. Maybe you don't even have a booster group, or you have no connection to your PTA if you're in elementary school. So I figuring out what group do you want to focus on, and then making small, tangible steps to kind of engage those groups more intentionally throughout the year. Also, advocacy is throughout your entire career. And what happens is when we try to take on all of those different groups, our community and business members, our volunteers and nonprofit, and admin and parents and teachers, that's too much. Teachers are doing already a lot. And to then take on all those different groups and try to engage them and try to tell them what to do, it's too much. As performers, we are like, we got to get it all down, all in one day, all in 1 year, done. Take your time, identify that one specific group that you want to build relationships with. And then from there, tailor what you are doing to fit the needs of that group. So if it is parents, perhaps you should consider a volunteer strengths form. And by that I mean, ask your parents, what are they good at? Are they good at social media? Is there someone who wants to take photos so that it could then be posted on social media? Is there someone who's a really good writer so they can start writing to your school board, your principal, your local newspaper, putting articles about your program, about the music education in the community out into the larger world, right? Do they have a really great announcing voice, and finding ways for them to maybe do a radio interview about the music program, right? Ask them what they are good at and then match their passion to your need. Okay. And that could be any group. That could be your principal. Let's shift it a little bit. If, let's say, you're trying to work with admin, ask what they are passionate about. If it's test scores, which usually they are, figure out a way to match that passion to what you need. I, as an elementary school teacher, we had a lot of conversations around subgroups. I was so tired of hearing about subgroups and data and test scores. We had to talk about it every single week. I kid you not. It was an hour every week.
Well, I believe you.
It was hard. David, it was hard because for the longest time, I didn't understand what that had to do with my class. And then I started asking questions. And what I realized was, who are these students? What do you need them to do? And I realized that over half of the students that we were focusing on in those data groups and subgroups, half of them, if not 80% of them, were in music. And they were not only in music, but they were also leaders in music. They were thriving in music class. And I took that opportunity to say, hold on, I understand that they are struggling with their math scores and reading scores, but let's talk about what they do in music. And then I share, and then we talk about how some of those skills could be transferred, not from the student because they're going to be the same kid, but from teacher to teacher. And then I got to share my expertise in teaching them through music with their classroom teacher. And it began to open my leadership eyes, but also colleagues' eyes to how I bring about success and academic achievement in my classroom to those specific groups, right? So again, matching what they're interested in, what they're passionate about, what they're focused on to what do you need? And at the time, I needed them to just know that we're thriving. We're doing a great job, and to keep supporting us. So yeah, those are kind of some of the steps I would say to kind of like summarize. 1, pick a specific group. 2, ask questions, get curious about that group. And then 3, try to match what they're passionate about or what they're interested in to what you need or what you're thriving at, and make those connections.
Now I'm thinking about, there's a lot of schools around the country that are like in the rural areas. And do you have
Mhm.
any advice to teachers that, might be an island? And, I always say this, we always kind of forget because sometimes those of us from big cities, we just assume that we have all these access to resources. But I feel like, is there any thoughts on, connection between communities? Do you have any advice there?
Yeah, so I grew up in rural Eastern North Carolina. The I like to say that the town I grew up in, the biggest thing happened was the New Deal, FDR's New Deal. And then if you don't know our US history that well, so there was this whole plan about, revitalizing rural areas, and 1945 was the biggest thing that happened, and that was when the town was created. So I know a little bit about living in rural areas and the importance of having a space where no matter what part of the community you're from, the music room could be the gathering space, right? It's one of the rare subject areas outside of sports that can bring everyone together. And so for teachers who are teaching in the rural area, I want to just say your classrooms can truly be the heartbeat of a community. And when you're trying to think about, well, who do we have connections to? Look at your students and remember that each kid that comes into that classroom likely has a connection to their community through their parents or caregivers, the people that, might be a religious institution or some sort of like social club like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. There are so many people who want to see those kids succeed. And it might look different than the school that's about 2.5 hours away with a huge population of kids, but it doesn't mean that that those people are less passionate about their kids, right? So when
Absolutely.
you're Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, absolutely. I was, go ahead. Keep going. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. Well, I was just saying, like, just because you're in a rural space doesn't mean that those people who are supporting those kids aren't passionate about them. So finding ways to build those connections. Perhaps maybe your concert, if you do have a concert, just say, hey, after the concert, 30 minutes after, we're just going to socialize and talk about how you participated in music. One of the cool things I have seen is like having a parent band, right? Bring your instrument if you played in the band, and then sit beside your kid and see, or if you played the same instrument or not, sit in on stage and play with us, right? Like, we don't necessarily have to constantly compare ourselves to others, and I think that might be something that hinders us from trying things differently and recognizing, hey, I might not look like, again, that program that's 2 hours or maybe even an hour down the road, but there's still some really great solid things happening, not only in this classroom but also with the people who are connected to the kids in that classroom.
Well, dare I say it, if you focus on the culture more than you focus on the content,
Hey
you know,
now.
maybe perhaps you won't have to worry about that competitive aspect in nature. Because I always was saying this, I feel like I could go anywhere, and the first thing that's going to pop in my head is how can I make this culture work so that we are spreading the word of music to anyone and everyone. And
Yes.
and I think that has to be a constant reminder for all of us that and being a band director, I think we are inherently competitive and worried about that next competition. But at some point, you can just say, "Are your kids having a good time? is
Mm.
is your community involved? Are And that's lives at the heart of who I am, is wanting to feel that we're providing something in just the community that I'm in. And so I saw before, we had the website. I wanted to mention the website because if they're listening, they're not seeing the website, but nafmi.org/advocacy. Such an easy one to remember. So, but are there any resources for you that you use from the website, or is there something, what can we learn from the website that helps provide something for our teachers?
Oh, okay. I want to talk about the website, but David, you just said something that I really want to go back to for rural teachers. And
Go
that's
for it.
for, and this is honestly any music educator. I used to tell my students, I won't be with you forever. So you need to learn how to do it by yourself now. And for elementary kiddos, that's more of developmentally, like, tying your shoe, learning how to problem solve and that kind of culture, independence growing up, but it was really honestly used to help them understand that the creativity, particularly within music education, is within them. And it's not my job to tell them how to be musical. They know through their lived experiences. And so, going back to your rural teachers question, I think that when we start doing the work of building that culture, that music is within us all, that we come together collectively in music education to learn together, to make music together. But what really builds classroom culture and music education culture is how we find ourselves connected to music as a whole. And so it's less of that teacher who is driving the content, but more of the students of the community who are driving music education. So yeah, I just want to make sure that rural teachers and any teacher really knows that, like, it's not just our responsibility to build that culture of music education. It is within that community. And let's be honest, we are individuals and we won't be there forever, right? Like, life happens. Either you have to move and we get old, we retire, we move on, and sometimes we even pass away. But the biggest part is helping the folks within that community and our students that are in our classrooms know that they will be doing music before us, with us, and after us. And that's what's important.
I
But
think that's great.
Oh, sorry.
It's the lovely delays of the internet make life fun. You're not trying to talk over one. Oh, there's my spot. Oh, I accidentally interrupted. But I was thinking to myself, as we you don't have to do it alone. And I think that's part of it. But dare I say it, that we music teachers are kind of control freaks of our curriculum sometimes. Is that a statement? Is that an honest statement?
Yeah.
And I think what you're saying and what I'm hearing is sometimes we need to let go and trust in our community, trust in others, trust that we don't have to always be that unified source of music advocacy. Because that's what I'm hearing. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good one. Because I'm thinking to myself, who can I ask to support? Maybe our friend Mr. Craig Gustafson, who was a guest 59, there he is. See, a very true statement. He's my teaching partner. He was also again. We talk about this all the time about maybe at the concert getting the kids more involved in the program and not just always being teacher driven is at our core, but sometimes letting go produces a better result. But how do you achieve that? What's the advice do you have for somebody to let others speak for you?
Oh, practice.
What? Not that word. I can't do that one.
One of the things I've learned, I live my life by sayings. And one of the sayings I have is, it wasn't the way that I would have done it, but it got done. And I think with especially music people who, again, I think that just isn't how we are trained. Like, this is the this is the music on the sheet. This is what we play. This is how we do it. Go, go, go. It's hard to give up control. It's hard to give up control. I say that because I have to remind myself it's not the way I would have done it, but it did get done. And I think also practicing asking for help. Hey, I'd love to get your thought on blah, blah, blah. Do it with something that is low stakes. It's easy. We do it when we want to, send an email to somebody. We ask our friend, hey, can you read it? Get somebody to read it. You don't have to be so independent about all the things. One of the things that I realized with teaching small people is they want to help. They want to help all the time. So I started instituting, I had a social media manager and a sound tech manager in elementary school. And so what I would do is, because I'm not a social media person, but I did have kids who love to take photos. And so I walked them through the process of, this is, back in the early 2000s, but how to take photos appropriately of folks, just their hands and, no faces. And they would save it for the day, and then I would upload it to social media and be like, check out what we're doing for, this certain class, right? And then my sound tech person, they would have an application, and then for our concerts and performances, they would run my sound, right? And over time, I just built in ways to let people help, to not only let them help, but to get them involved, because not all of them are going to be performers. But sure enough, there is a job in the future for a sound technician, a sound engineer. Sure enough, there's going to be someone who is doing communications management for your favorite performer, your favorite band. Like, that's what I mean by I won't be with you forever. So you got to learn how to do it by yourself. I also don't have all the information. So we have to figure this out together. And oftentimes, those roles went to kids who were good in music, like the good kids in music, but we weren't doing things that interested them. However, the tech side interested them. So I think practicing, asking for help, being creative, and how you match what are people's passions and interest to what you need, and going from there. And sometimes it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And that's okay. It's not going to
I
be the
call
last
my
time.
I call my life is like spaghetti. I throw things against the wall, and if it sticks, I keep doing it. And if it falls down, then I have spaghetti, and it's all
Mhm.
good. It's
Mhm.
a win-win at that point.
Mhm.
And so, I wrote down self-advocacy creates connection. And I was
Mm.
thinking, that's what we're trying to get kids to do. We want them to self-advocate. And then by doing so, you said it, because I believe that music isn't just band, orchestra, and choir in high school. I was teaching sound engineering, music production, because I wanted to offer a class to students that wasn't necessarily there, because I kept thinking to myself, think about this. How many churches around have a sound engineer, and that's what they do? I mean, it
Yes.
is so big. I mean, there's so many jobs out there in music that are not performing. And I think
Mhm.
sometimes we forget to mention that. And then I keep going back to my Matt Wood episode 1 thing, but and talking to the kids and seeing how their weekend goes, maybe that's some of those things of seeking out with your own students, find out what their interests are and use them, and even doing it at a concert. If you have a production, find out what the parents do, talk about it, and this is hard for me. Listen more, listen more, and take some of that advice you get from the people that you work with. And those students are powerful when you find their passion.
Mhm. And I would say too, get used to controlled chaos. Um
Teach kindergarten once. That's all I'm going to say. That's all you need to know.
my principal would come into my room, and inevitably I would say, I promise it's music related, because because when I learned the importance of giving students a space to explore and discover what brings them passion within music education, I had kids creating their own music in one group. I had kids um I laugh at this every time. I don't know what happened with this group of kids, but they all wanted to become like authors and writers for famous musicians. And so every week that we had this class, I would have 5 kids come in and like read out their little research report on different artists. And what was really funny was, by the end of that year, these kids started doing PowerPoint presentations. They had a headshot, they had date of birth, they had like the highlights of every author. I went out and I printed them out, and I started just filling my room with these artist profiles that the kids did. So if they didn't want to make their own music, they started researching artists that they were interested in. Um, and that, I mean, they were really good research. I was like, wow, this is impressive. And I had parents that would call me and be like, oh, my child was so upset they didn't get a chance to do their report. And I'm like, what report? And they go, the one that you asked them to do. I'm like, I'm not asking them. They're doing it on their own. But yeah, they'll do it next time they come in. And, if they weren't making music, writing these reports, which I think is hilarious. What classroom is that? A whole bunch of kids wanting to come in and read their report on their artist. But anyways, they were, making arrangements, playing instruments, we had lunchtime concerts where the kids would sign up to go and play in the lunchroom for other kids for a lunchtime concert. So get used to the controlled chaos that is music education, and you'll begin to see how more people get engaged and involved in music education.
It's funny you mentioned this. We had a big project this week. And my big thing was to just not control anything and let the students handle it and just give advice. And I think all I hear is the same thing. I feel like when you give control to the students and they believe and they know that you're believing in them, you're going to get better results. And and it goes back to those test scores. Going back to that earlier conversation about, those conversations, I always like to use the words like music literacy, because you're just throwing in that word music literacy makes the admin eyeballs go up, because then you're starting to speak the language. And it's, again, you're trying to get a connection between academic performance, but music is academic performance. And I lectured at Oregon State University, by the way, if they're out there, Oregon State folks, and we talked about that whole piece of giving students the control, because when there's student buy-in, it's more powerful. It doesn't have to be right. And like you said, making a mistake is okay. If it doesn't work, move on. But I believe in this power of what students can do. I believe in the power of what, finding out connections. Not only does it makes us stronger as teachers when we find out what our kids, but you said it. If the kids are passionate about what they're doing, then you're going to have the opposite fight of how many of the kids want to come to your classroom versus any of the others. I think that's the win-win for any music teachers, when the kids want to come because they're looking forward to what you're going to do. Kind of helps with discipline too.
Well, exactly. And I remember I knew that we were doing stuff right when so we would teach the kids Monday through Thursday, and then Friday would be their choice day, and they would choose between music, art, PE. And I knew we were doing something right when I had a waiting list for music clubs. And my PE teacher was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "We're having fun and we're learning." So
fun? This is school.
I know.
We're not having fun.
I know. I was told that I was having too much fun one time. I kid you not. And I said, "Well, I guess it's hard to be me. I don't know." And they were learning. So what can I do? But
you
I
can
agree.
Smile and enjoy the ride.
Yeah. And I did every bit of it. I loved every bit of it. But it sounds nice now, but I really hope that any teacher that is wanting to dig into doing this work of building a space where students are truly excited and engaging them in a different way, start small.
Well,
Start small.
You want to play a game? Let's play a game.
Ooh, let's do it.
All righty? You ready? Here goes. What makes you excited? What is one thing that makes you excited? Let's do this as if this was our classroom. What makes you excited?
Seeing people succeed. Yeah.
What about queso?
Oh my God.
See, now I'm speaking magic words. Give me something non-academic. What makes you happy? Give me a happy.
What makes me happy? I mean, food related, definitely chocolate.
Oh,
give me some chocolate.
Oh my God, we can go food related all day. And I'm going to get hungry through this podcast. But my point to that question is but that's the kind of interaction you can have with your students. And thank you, Craig Cousins. He knows that queso is my top word. So I'm going to set America on fire. Every time a student talks to me, they always say queso. And I just look at them and I go, cheese.
Cheese.
So next time you hear the kids say K, so when I'm like, cheese. But I think, think about this interaction for advocacy piece. Think about the things that, just what we did there for a second, what makes you passionate, what you do with your kids. Cause I mean, if I give you the topic of queso, what's your favorite kind of what do you do with the queso? Do you put salsa in it? Do you eat it with chips?
So, okay. Here's the funny thing. I only crave queso at specific times throughout the year. Like it's not something that I have to have once a month, but there are just
Oh.
specific times where I'm like, oh, I really want some queso. Like, give me, I don't care about anything else. Just give me a bag of chips and some queso dip. Not the kind that I get from the store. It has to come from a restaurant. I don't want the extra beef and all the extra toppings in it. I just want straight cheese, chip and dip. That's it. And it's not even like during football game time, Super Bowl, cheese dip. No, it's just random times throughout the year. Now, something that I am like committed to when I make it is guacamole.
Mm.
Good
How much
guac.
garlic do you put in?
Oh man, too much. But it's so
Never,
good.
never
It's
too much. There's just
good.
lack of friends when there's too much, but it tastes great.
It tastes
Um,
great. It tastes great. But
but
yeah.
see, and as I take this podcast and derail it, the whole point of the conversation is we get passionate about things that we care about, and not that we care about cheese and guacamole. I'm just saying, but it's the same thing that your classroom can be. It can be that way with the parents. It can be
Mhm.
that way with the admin. I always, I like to go up to people and like, hey, do you drink coffee? I think that's my bonding point. Do you drink coffee? And maybe once in a while, just drop off. Here's the best thing. Try it. Drop off a $5, some gift certificate to somewhere, but don't tell them it's from you. Just drop it off and see if it makes a difference, or tell them it's from you and just say, this is how much I appreciate what you do. We work better when we have relationships, and it doesn't matter
Mhm.
that it's built around coffee or cheese. Don't do them together. It's an awkward taste. I'm throwing that out there.
Oh,
Um,
I don't.
but I will try
Okay.
it. I'm not saying,
I'll take your word for it.
I'm just saying that relationship piece is great, but finding the way to get your classroom to be a relationship. I think sometimes we worry too much that our jobs are work. And I think that's when you go and look forward to it and finding that enjoyment, start tomorrow. Maybe we can all find out from America. Ask your students about what kind of queso or they like, or if they drink coffee. Don't ask the kids if they drink coffee, because then they find out that the answer is yes, that they do. But let's shift our gears here. So we've talking advocacy. You like that non sequitur? We're just gonna go
It
left here.
works.
So let's talk about the other part of your title, because I don't want to dismiss what you do, but you have advocacy and you have equity. So let's talk a little bit of equity. I think that is also one of those passionate things that I talk about. But to me, equity becomes a reality when there's access, participation, and the big thing for me, representation. And
Mm.
so, speaking about equity, because this also can help with advocacy. But tell us about the equity side of your position.
So my work is to support the NAFME's Equity Committee and the work that they do. So I'm a resource finder for them. I collaborate with them in reviewing for NAFME content. And the whole point of the Equity Committee is always asking the question: how can the content or what we're sharing, providing, be more inclusive? That's one of the coolest parts about how advocacy and equity intersect is how can we bring more people into the fold of music education? So that's kind of like a quick synopsis of what I do, but the main goal is how can we be more inclusive about what we do as music educators?
Can you give me an example? Because I'm thinking my brain's going, tell me general music, tell me choir, tell me orchestra, tell me guitar. It's like, sorry, my brain goes back to admin speak, and it drives me nuts. But I think about representation, and I think it's so many pieces that you just want to make representation a natural part of your classroom,
Mm.
and not make it like, today we're going to work on representation. The test will be Friday.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think too, sometimes when people think about equity, inclusion, representation, it's like, give me a checklist and I'll
Yes.
check, 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 check. And I'm like, that would mean that we're all the same. Like we come from all the same communities and we have all the same resources. And that's obviously not the reality that we live in. And so I'll give you an example from my own teaching. When we started talking about those subgroups, remember we were talking about those subgroups, a lot of those subgroups were boys. And a lot of in that subgroup were boys of color as well. And what I began to notice was the language that they were using around boys of color, and this difference, this drastically different language that I was using around these same kids. When I thought about that group, I was like, well, they're brilliant. They're problem solvers. They're leaders. They are kind. They are respectful. But I would not have gotten to that point if I had not seen boy singers as a subgroup in my own classroom and as a group that needed representation. So back it up like 2 years, okay, from that moment in that meeting, I had met someone who talked about boy singers with passion and excitement like I had never heard before. And I was like, I think I probably have 2 boys in my choir of 30. We were a smaller school. I like have 2 boys in my choir of 30, and I probably don't think they probably won't come back next year. Like my retention was bad, and they were always in a sea of girls, which is elementary choir, and So I met this person, and they started talking passionately about boy singers, about voice change, and through these conversations and listening and learning with them and from them, I learned that I need to really honestly change the way I think about it and change the way I approach it, change the way that I do this work. Why is it that boy singers are not going to be in choir in 3rd grade? What am I missing? And how can I be more inclusive or create a more inclusive space for boy singers? And what actually ended up happening was I started asking them those questions, and I realized that in 2nd grade, my students loved singing at the beginning of the year, but something happened that switch, that second half of 2nd grade going into 3rd, there was some sort of developmental change, socially change, and where singing was no longer cool. And they just dropped off the face of the earth. Like I lost some of my best singers. And so what I started doing was, up until then, you could only join choir if you were in 3rd grade. But I opened it up to the second half of 2nd grade. And there's, this long history of boy choir. So it's not like they can't sing. We'll just guide them through the process. And as soon as I opened that up to the second half of 2nd grade, and I started them on just like boy singers are the best, providing examples of boy singers, and not just boy singers that were always singing about love songs, but boy singers that were doing professional work like boy choir work, or singing and playing instruments, or participating in groups, and just giving them strong examples of what they could do in their current situation. It got so wild about my boy singing representation. My girls began to complain. They were like, we can sing good too. And I was like, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. And in 2 years, I tripled the number of boys in my choir. Now, I ended up, I think, with like 17 boys out of 40.
Wow.
But not only that, I grew, the numbers grew. I mean, boys were like clamoring in to be in choir. They were leading our group rehearsals and small groups. They were taking attendance. They would be like my star examples. But that was because I knew the importance of representation, boy representation, boys of color representation. And that kind of just created this culture of like, I have a space here. I can thrive here. This is a safe space for me. And then we were able to have conversations about your voice changing. And as this group grew, I began to be one of the very few folks who had like boy singers at the county and district level, right? And my boys would be like, why are there no boys? Where are all the boys at? I'm like, guys, I don't know what to tell you. You're just really, really good at what you do, but don't stop doing it just because you don't have enough people. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to find some friends at other schools. And they would find other boy friends at, other schools. So I, to answer your question is like, that's what it means to be inclusive with representation, is to see something and say, what am I missing? How can I bring more people into the fold? And I'm not going to say this lightly, the life-changing work that happens when we ask those two questions, what am I missing and how can I bring more people into the fold, is a huge step in the right direction of making music education available to all students.
I believe that 100%. And what you've got my brain on right now is looking back at it, because right now it's always easy when you get the result to go like, oh, this is always my plan. How do we learn from some of these things? Because that's I think of it, I think about underrepresentation in composers. I think about showing my students, giving my students opportunities in music where they can see people that look like them, and you can feel it. It's just like, again, there's no right or wrong way to build a community if you're intentional about it. And sometimes we do have to be intentional, but how do we create this demand? How do we as teachers, it seems as easy to say, identify this problem, but what if we don't know it's there?
Oh, what if we don't know it's there?
Isn't that, because I'm thinking about this,
That's a very good question.
Because I can think of I can think of some, we're from different areas. You're about 3,000 miles, east of me right now. But there's, what if we stop 1,500 miles in,
Mhm.
is how do we tell people that even if that representation is, and I think that's like here's the scary question after we've been going for 2 minutes is here, I'm going to get, into the thickness of it all. But I think it is so important, because I had to flip my switch about underrepresentation in my programming, representation in my own students, because it's all about, once it feels right, it is right. But sometimes you have to create that feeling and just get used to it. Back in the day, I think, as a band director, we always just programmed the same kind of music and the same kind of composers. And now I look at my music completely differently, because I have learned over the last 10 years of what that does, how powerful that becomes. And, one of my favorites is composition, even composition of itself, because sometimes we just play all this music, but we don't identify composition. And then we find out there is composition, who the composer is, and learn about those lives. And I just feel like those conversations can be great if we have them, but sometimes we just need to say, have them.
Yes. And yes, first, absolutely. Having those conversations with your students is paramount. But I would also say asking questions of yourself. And that, I know that's hard because we are all like trying to do our best in these teaching times. And I think asking questions of yourself so what is it that I'm offering that is bringing people in? Or what is it am I offering that's not bringing people in? I remember having to ask that question of myself when I was like, why don't I talk about boys singers this way? Why am I not excited about boy singers? I have 2 brothers, musical, sang. My dad sang, my family sang. So what is this internal thing that I'm not creating a space for my boy singers that my family was showing me? And so asking those questions of myself, but even asking those questions of students that aren't in our classroom. If you are in middle school or high school and kids are walking by your classroom, hey, why are you not music? Do you do music? And the answer is yes, they do music. They are likely consumers of music, but most of the time they make their own music. Most of the time they are singing or playing their own music differently, right? So it's about asking questions. What do you want to do in music? What would interest you in coming into this classroom every day? And asking those questions are not always the easiest to hear the answers, but it's an opportunity to grow And it's an opportunity, again, to bring more people into the fold of music education. And think about it, like you, this would be insane, but just think. I think sometimes we think about all the things that could go wrong. Think about all the things that could go right. That you ask the questions that lead to answers, and where your space of teaching music not only doubles but triples. That you have enough excitement, engagement, that parents are coming in and they're like, hey, I want to help make this possible because my kid is excited. Community people are sending in donations and grants because, wow, this is really engaging. And the kids can't stop thinking about it. The principal is walking by your classroom every time they do tours and being like, and this is our music education department. Like, what kind of awesomeness could happen if we ask questions with the hope of bringing more people in, and the excitement that genuine, hey, I really want you to be in my classroom and want to be here and excited to be here. Like, you could even have like a teacher ensemble where teachers are playing and making music. But we have to be willing to step out on the ledge and get curious and give up that need for control, and to kind of have like this beautiful chaos of symphony working together to make this massive movement for music education.
I'm going to adopt a phrase from this. I should make bumper stickers, but chaos is okay. It
Yeah.
really is. It really is. Again, I'm going to keep going back. Just teach kindergarten for 1 week and everyone will know exactly. Those of us who have taught kindergarten for a week, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes.
But it is so, herding cats is always fun. But it is life changing once you get them to come for the food. I'm going to keep going back to this. How do we create the demand for learning? Because I think that's, when you're passionate, your kids are passionate. When your kids buy in, there's no right or wrong answer. Just try stuff. We talked about this last week in the show about, putting on the mask and just being free and letting the enjoyment of the kids come to your classroom.
Yeah. And they'll know if it's genuine.
Yes.
They'll know if
100%.
one of the things I also learned was I tell them straight up, I'm like, okay, everybody repeat after me. And they're like, okay, Miss Sutton, did you make a mistake? Did you make a mistake? Yes. And I'll say, yes, I did. And then they'll say, we noticed and it's okay. So like we did this whole banter of like recognizing that even I, as a teacher, does not know it all and make mistakes, because then that creates a space for them to say, I don't know it all and I make mistakes too. But together we're making music education.
You can have my phrase. The older I get, the less I know. That's what I keep finding out.
Oh, I like that one. I like that one a lot.
But I'm a lot more comfortable with it now that I don't know any. I'm almost to the point I don't know anything. That's what I've decided as I've gotten older. But not to scare you, but we've been going 58 minutes. And I know. And now that we're getting kind of hot, we go back to the cheese conversation. I love that one. It's about time for those final thoughts or parting words. I got to come up with a better name for the end of the show, because I don't want it to be your final thoughts, because I don't want it to be the end. I want it to be like, send us off, give us your inspiration, give us your final thought to our audience out there. Maybe it's about your position. Maybe it's about your teaching. I don't know. I don't control people. That's what I've learned. You can't do it. It's horrible. Teach kindergarten 1 week, everyone. Just try it one week.
Just one.
All right. Miss Sutton.
Yeah.
Bring it home.
I think that might be it, is to put yourself in the position of teaching kindergarten on the first day, and think about it like you're bringing everyone in and your job is to make music together, and you're coming in from the same space, or you're coming into the same space, and how do you shape that space so that everyone has a space to be their full self, but make music education. It's wild, it's chaotic, but it is beautiful. And have more hope. Hope that things will go right. Hope that things will go abundantly right. And that even when you're not in control, goodness will flow, music education will flow, and more people will get involved. Release yourself to the flow of music education. because then that means you don't have to control it and you get to witness the beauty and the deep challenges, but growth that wait ahead of you. Yeah.
Well, I want to give out the website one more time before you go today, because you have been an absolute joy. And we can talk a little cheese after the show, but nafme.org/advocacy. And we didn't even get to the links. So I wanted to talk about the links that we had today. I seriously wanted to talk Title I and Title IV funding.
I know, me too.
Everyone out there, go to your office and just say, give me Title IV funds. I know they're there and I can have them. Just go out there and go do it. Everyone.
Or just shoot me an email, advocacy@nafme.org.
I'll say it again. Advocacy@nafme.org. And I need to pay my dues in 11 days. I'm just throwing that out there. Maybe it's 12 days.
Wait, let me triple check and make sure I got the.
Oh, don't look at my dues. I want to make sure I paid them. I'm kidding.
Oh. I would never call.
Okay, David has not paid his dues. Get him off. No.
But I just want to also say all of those resources are free to the public, just in case.
Sorry. It's my job to throw chaos to where there is order. Craig, if you're listening, it's the same for everyone.
But I want to make sure I got that right, because sometimes I forget that it's either, so it is advocacy@nafme.org. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them and to just reach out about that federal funding. It's important.
And we'll just tell Patrick in the background, edit that part so we just said it all right and it went super quick. It was super quick. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
You're amazing. Thank you. All right. Well, thanks for spending your day with us. That was great. And as we wrap up, we'd love for you to share this podcast on your social media, because when you do, it helps more teachers find their way into this conversation. And again, I've compiled some resources for you. Take a look. I've asked for them like the last 5 days. I've gotten asked for them. DavidDuarte.org. Find the instruction hub. You can see my Oregon State presentation, see what I talked about. It was great. You can always reach me directly at david.duarte@me.com. And I actually have my Instagram at culturebefore, which is the number, or I think B is a letter, B and 4 content. So it's at culture before content. And really what I use it for is to post the show links. And don't forget, this episode, along with all the others, is available at musicforall.org/podcast. And again, thank you to Music for All for bringing the show to life. Thank you, Yamaha, for being our national presenting sponsor. I'm David Duarte. Thank you for being a part of our culture today, and I'll see you next time.